Some people always arrive early, yet life never seems to break them. They grow older with calm faces, steady minds, and quiet confidence. Others rush through life, always chasing time, and somehow end up more anxious as they age. The real difference isn't success or luck. It's how each person learns to live with time, control their pace, and stay mentally unshaken inside. There is a quiet difference between people that most of us never notice. At first glance, it has nothing to do with success, money, education, or even personality. It is something far more subtle, something hidden in how a person relates to time. Think about this carefully. You have seen people who always arrive early, not just on time, but early. They sit quietly before a meeting starts. They are not rushing. They are not checking their phone repeatedly. They are simply present, calm, observant, almost as if they are already in sync with the moment before it begins. Now compare them with another type of person, the ones who are always rushing in late, breathing heavily, apologizing, adjusting themselves, still mentally arriving even after their body has reached the place. Their energy feels scattered. Their mind is still catching up with reality. At first, we judge this as a simple habit difference. We say, some people are just disciplined, others are not. But if you observe long enough, you realize something deeper is happening. This is not about discipline, it is about inner timing. People who arrive early are not just managing clocks, they are managing themselves. Somewhere in their life, they have learned a very quiet skill. They do not allow time to pressure them into becoming someone they are not. On the other hand, people who are always rushing are not just busy, they are reactive. Life is pushing them, and they are responding. Instead of leading their time, they are being led by it. And here is where the difference begins to grow silently over years.
When a person constantly lives in rush, their mind starts adapting to urgency. Even when there is no emergency, their body behaves as if there is one. Their speech becomes faster. Their thoughts become scattered. Their patience becomes thinner. They start living in a permanent state of almost late, but the early arriver is different. They experience something else entirely in those quiet minutes before others arrive. A pause, a stillness, a mental settling. It is in those small moments that they regain control over their inner world. They are not waiting for life to start. They are already inside it. And this is the first major idea you need to understand in this lecture. Your relationship with time slowly becomes your relationship with life itself. Because how you handle small moments, waiting, pausing, arriving, sitting quietly, eventually shapes how you handle bigger moments like pressure, responsibility, aging, and even loneliness. Most people never notice this connection. They think life becomes stressful because of external problems. But often the real reason is internal speed. Some people are mentally always late, even when they are physically ahead of time. And others are mentally early, even in the middle of chaos. Now let's go deeper into something most people never question. Why is it that some people grow older with calm faces, steady energy, and emotional balance, while others become more anxious, restless, and mentally crowded, even if both lived successful lives? The answer is not in what they achieved. The answer is in how they lived their time every single day. Let's continue from where we left off. People who consistently arrive early in life are not just practicing a habit, they are practicing a psychological state. Every time they reach before time, they are unconsciously sending a message to their own mind. I am not under pressure, I am not being chased, I am ahead of the moment. This may sound small, but over years, it builds a deep internal pattern, a sense of control over time, rather than submission to it. Now compare this with someone who is always rushing. Their experience of time is completely different. For them, time is not something they live with. It is something they constantly fight against. They are always trying to catch up, fix delays, compensate for lateness, and recover lost minutes. Slowly, this creates an invisible emotional state, permanent urgency. Even when life becomes easier later, like after retirement, the mind does not immediately change. The body may stop working, but the internal clock keeps running fast. This is why many people feel restless even when they have nothing to do. Now here is the key psychological shift. Early people learn stillness. They get repeated micro-experiences of waiting calmly, sitting quietly, and being early without panic. Rush-driven people learn tension. They get repeated micro-experiences of chasing, fixing, apologizing, and reacting under pressure. Over decades, these micro-experiences become identity. So when aging arrives, it simply reveals what was already built inside. That is why early people often appear calmer with age. They are not suddenly peaceful, they have been practicing peace in small moments for years without realizing it. Even their nervous system adapts. Their body learns that waiting is not danger. Their mind learns that silence is not emptiness. Their emotions learn that stillness is safe. And this is extremely important. Calmness in old age is not a gift. It is a result of repeated inner behavior. Now think about the opposite side. People who have lived in constant rush often struggle with silence later in life. When external responsibilities reduce, internal noise increases. The mind tries to create urgency, even when there is none. They feel like something is missing, but they cannot identify what. Because what is missing is not activity. It is familiar pressure. This is why retirement becomes difficult for many. Not because life ends, but because speed suddenly disappears. And when speed disappears, they are left alone with themselves for the first time. For early people, this moment is not frightening. They already know how to sit with themselves. They have practiced it in those quiet early minutes of life. For rush-driven people, this moment feels uncomfortable because they have never learned to be still without purpose. So now you begin to see the deeper truth. The way you treat time in small daily moments becomes the emotional foundation of your entire life. Now we move into something even more personal and visible in real life, your relationships. Because this is where the hidden truth of time finally becomes noticeable to others. You can hide your stress from words. You can hide your fatigue behind a smile. But you cannot easily hide your relationship with time. People feel it in your presence. Let's understand this step by step. When a person arrives early, something interesting happens before the meeting even begins. They enter a space that is still quiet, still forming, still undisturbed. In those moments, they are not just waiting, they are absorbing the environment. They sit, observe, and slowly adjust their internal rhythm to match the space. Their mind is not reacting, it is settling. By the time others arrive, they are already mentally present. This creates something powerful in human interaction. Full presence. Now compare this with someone who arrives late or rushed. They enter the room physically, but mentally they are still outside. Their mind is catching up. They are adjusting their breath, their thoughts, their apologies, their appearance. Even when they start speaking, a part of them is still not fully there. This difference is subtle, but people feel it immediately. Because presence is not about being physically in a place. It is about whether your mind has fully arrived. And here is the deeper insight. People do not remember your words as much as they remember your energy. When someone is calm and internally settled, their presence feels safe. Conversations flow naturally. There is no pressure to fill silence. Even silence feels comfortable. But when someone is internally rushed, even silence feels heavy. Conversations feel forced. There is a subtle urgency in their behavior, like something needs to be done quickly. Over time, this shapes relationships. Early arriving, calm individuals often become the kind of people others trust. Not because they try harder, but because they feel stable. Their presence does not disturb the emotional environment. It steadies it. On the other hand, people who live in constant rush often struggle without understanding why. They may be kind, intelligent, even hardworking, but their energy can feel scattered. Others unconsciously sense that instability. And here is the most important point. Relationships are not built only on actions. They are built on emotional timing. When your internal rhythm is calm, people feel safe with you. When your internal rhythm is chaotic, people feel uncertain, even if you say the right things. This is why some people naturally attract long-term relationships, not because they try to hold people closer, but because they do not create emotional pressure. They are not trying to speed up connection. They allow it to form naturally. And this ability comes from something very simple but deeply powerful. They have learned to sit before time and sit with themselves. That quiet habit of arriving early slowly turns into emotional maturity. It teaches patience. It teaches observation. It teaches restraint. And most importantly, it teaches presence. So when life becomes complex, relationships, family, aging, responsibility, they do not collapse under emotional speed. They remain grounded because they are not living inside urgency. They are living inside awareness. Now we come to a part of the lecture that most people only understand when it is too late. Why do so many people feel a strange emptiness after life becomes easier? They worked hard. They raised families. They fulfilled responsibilities. They survived pressure, deadlines, and constant demands. And yet when life slows down, especially after retirement, something unexpected happens. They feel lost inside their own time. To understand this, we need to go back to a simple truth we've been building throughout this lecture. People who live in constant rush do not just manage time differently. They train their mind to depend on external structure. Their days are shaped by schedules, obligations, and responsibilities. Wake up for work, rush for meetings, meet deadlines, solve problems, repeat. In this pattern, Life always tells them what to do next. There is no silence. There is no empty space. There is always direction coming from outside. Now imagine what happens when that structure suddenly disappears. The schedule is gone. The pressure is gone. The responsibilities reduce. On paper, this should feel like freedom. But internally, something very different happens. The mind, which was trained for decades to respond to urgency, suddenly has no urgent signal to respond to. And instead of peace, it creates confusion. This is where many people experience what we can call internal restlessness. They wake up in the morning, but there is no clear direction. They have time, but no emotional map for that time. They try to relax, but relaxation feels unfamiliar. So instead of rest, they feel discomfort. And here is the deeper psychological truth. That if you never learn how to live your time, you will struggle when time becomes yours. People who always lived according to external time, work time, family time, social time, often never developed internal time. They never learned what it feels like to simply be without urgency. So when life slows down, they do not feel relief. They feel displacement. Now contrast this with people who spent years practicing small moments of stillness, the ones who arrived early, the ones who sat quietly before meetings, the ones who learned to be alone without discomfort. For them, empty time is not a threat, it is familiar space. They are not dependent on constant movement to feel alive. They can sit, observe, think, or simply exist without anxiety. This is why aging affects people so differently. For some, aging removes structure and they feel unanchored. For others, aging simply removes noise and they feel free. The difference was never created at retirement. It was created in small daily habits, how they treated waking time, how they handled silence, how they responded to stillness. And now we arrive at a very important realization. The feeling of emptiness in later life is often not caused by lack of activity. It is caused by lack of internal direction. When external life stops guiding them, they realize they never built an internal guide. So they try to fill the space again, staying busy, turning on the TV, searching for distractions or mentally revisiting past routines. Not because they want stress, but because they fear silence. Because silence forces them to meet themselves. And if someone has never practiced meeting themselves, that moment feels heavy. This is why the lecture keeps returning to one simple idea. The way you live small moments of time is actually preparing you for your future emotional life. Now we arrive at the final part of this lecture, and everything comes together here. If you have followed the idea carefully, you will realize that this was never just about arriving early or being punctual. It was never about habits on the surface. It was always about something deeper. How a human being learns to live inside time. Throughout life, every person is silently building a relationship with time. Not in big dramatic moments, but in small everyday experiences. The way you wake up in the morning, the way you react when you are late, the way you sit while waiting for someone, the way you handle silence when nothing is happening. These moments look ordinary, but they are actually shaping your inner world. Now here is the final insight. People do not age the same way physically, but they also do not age the same way mentally. Some people grow older with softness. Their presence becomes calm, their reactions become slower, their mind becomes less reactive. They do not feel constantly pushed by life. Even in silence, they remain steady. Others grow older with tension still inside them. Their mind continues to rush even when life has slowed down. They feel time is never enough even when they have more time than ever before. Why does this happen? Because life does not suddenly change at old age. It simply reveals what has been built over decades. If a person has lived in constant urgency, their mind becomes trained for urgency. If a person has lived with patience, their mind becomes trained for patience. If a person has lived always reacting, they carry that reaction into old age. If a person has learned to observe, they carry observation into old age. This is why two people of the same age can feel like they belong to completely different worlds. One feels peaceful with a cup of tea and silence. The other feels uncomfortable without activity or distraction. And here is the most important realization of all. Peace is not something you find at the end of life. It is something you build in the middle of ordinary moments. Now think back to everything we discussed. The person who arrives early is not simply managing time better. They are practicing a deeper skill. They are learning to slow down their internal reaction. They are learning to sit with silence. They are learning to be present before life demands attention. They are learning not to be controlled by urgency. And slowly over time, this becomes their personality. That is why such people often appear more stable, more grounded, and more emotionally balanced as they age. Not because life treated them differently, but because they learned how to treat time differently. Now let's bring it to a final reflection. Ask yourself honestly, do you live inside your time, or does your time live inside you? Because this is the real question underneath everything. Many people spend their entire lives reacting to time, but a few learn to move with it. And even fewer learn to remain calm within it. And those few people carry something very rare in old age. They are not chasing life anymore. They are simply living it. So if there is one final message from this entire lecture, it is this. Start noticing your small moments. Start arriving a little earlier, not just physically but mentally. Start sitting quietly, without needing to escape it. Start letting your mind slow down in safe moments, not just forced ones. Because one day, life will also slow down for you. And when it does, the only thing that will matter is this: whether you built peace inside your time, or spent your life running after it. That is the real difference between people who age with calmness and people who age with restlessness. And that difference begins in moments so small that most people ignore them. But life never ignores them.